Another monthly book recs video. So in case you missed my first video on the monthly book recs topic, I will leave a link to it up in the cards and down below in the description. Basically, I started a new Goodreads group to kind of fill the hole that was in my life now that monthly recommendations and Top 5 Wednesday have become pretty defunct, where I just wanted to create a monthly recommendations topic that everyone could participate in if they so choose. You don't have to do every month. You can just participate in the months that interest you, like the topic that interests you. You can post it at any point in time during the month. I just ask that you use the hashtag monthly book recs, so that I can find you on like here or on Twitter, etc. I'll also leave a link to the Goodreads group down below so you can stay abreast of future topics. So the topic for March is LGBTQIA plus authors, so queer authors. I know I probably should save this topic for like Pride Month, but why? I can just do another LGBTQIA plus topic in Pride Month. Like, it's fine. We can have more than one month where we talk about queerness, queer authors, and celebrate their works. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to do this topic because in my head I had this big list of authors I wanted to talk about, but then when I sit down to make the list itself, I wanted to verify that some of the authors I thought were LGBT were, but then I couldn't find any verification. I think it's one of those things where I follow a lot of authors on Twitter, and so I see them talking about themselves or talking about issues, but it's not like I'm bookmarking it or taking notes or anything. So I feel like there are a bunch of authors I'm going to leave off this video because if I couldn't find verification, I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to like misgender or misrepresent someone or whatever. But I do feel like there's several I'm leaving off here that I think are, especially several female authors who I think are bisexual, but it's just not in their bios. But I've seen them talking about bi erasure especially, but I can't find the evidence. So anyway, let's get into the handful of authors who are really fantastic, who are very explicit about this. First off, an obvious one, and an author I've talked about a lot on this channel is Yoon Lee. So Lee is a trans man and also an Asian American, and they write amazing science fiction. Nine Fox Gambit is one of my favorite books of all time. I have a review for it. I'll link it up in the cards. I like the whole Machineries of Empire series, and I think it's really fantastic, and I'm constantly trying to get more people to read it because it's not the easiest book in the world, but it is a really, really good book. Another person I mentioned on this channel a really long time ago, and I do have a review for, is going to be C.S. Pacat. So C.S. Pacat goes by she, her, or he, him pronouns, and she has said that she has announced on Twitter, this was back a couple of years ago, that she considers herself genderqueer, but that either set of gendered pronouns is fine. So C.S. Pacat famously wrote the Captive Prince trilogy, which I do have a review for up above, and it's a review of the whole trilogy, which I really love. I love it a lot. She's also written a graphic novel series called Fence, which I have not read, mostly because it's a sports story. I think it's like a boarding school fencing academy type thing. I know fencing, like the sport of fencing, is one of the primary features of it. It definitely feels like a series that got picked up because like of the Yuri on Ice craze, but for fencing. And I'm just not into sports stories. C.S. Pacat has also recently announced that she'll be publishing, I think it's a new YA series, so I'm very excited for that. I'm kind of hoping it's more of like a fantasy or speculative thing instead of a contemporary thing. I'm not really sure, but I do really love The Captive Prince, and I think it's one of those indulgent, fun, romantic, fantasy, adventure trilogies that's also very, very sexy. So someone else I want to mention, I have not read any of their novellas, though I do own one of them, but I have read a short story from them, and I'm going to butcher their name, is Jii Neon Gang. So their professional name is Jii Yang, but they've recently announced that they will be going by the name Neon on Twitter, and My laptop is so slow, it won't load Twitter. Anyways, they famously wrote The Black Tides of Heaven, which I want to say is the first in a novella trilogy from Tor. I haven't actually read that, but I did read a short story they had included in The Mythic Dream. I think I have a review of that collection I can link above. I don't know if I mention their story from that in particular, but it was in my probably like top 10 favorite stories of that collection, and I've really been reading to read more of their work. I think they write a lot of like Asian inspired fantasy and sci-fi. A probably less well-known author, someone you might not have heard of unless you're in the indie pub circles, I want to mention is Isabel Adler. She is demisexual and biromantic, which is demisexual especially is, I feel like that's also how I identify, is one of those orientations that you hear so few people ever talking about. Maybe it's because we're like real rare flowers, I don't know, but it's really cool to see like another author identifying as demisexual and being upfront about it. Isabel publishes with 9 Star Press and has written just a bunch of different stories. She's written a space trilogy. She's also written at least one complete-ish fantasy trilogy. I will leave links to these down below. She's also got a new book out called The Wolf and the Sparrow, which I think is maybe like a medieval fantasy-ish or like a court fantasy enemies arranged marriage story. It looks really cool. I'll leave a link down below. And then a self-published author I want to mention is Jordan ElHawk. He identifies as queer and uses he, him pronouns. He has very successfully written, self-published I was getting it wrong. Wyborn and Griffin series. The first book is Widdershins. And I have mentioned these in a few places on my channel before because I did read the first 3, and he did write like a crossover novella with KJ Charles. And these books are really cool because they're like Edwardian mystery, paranormal investigation type stories with that draw heavily on like Cthulhu mythos, which is definitely that kind of turn of the century Edwardian weird fantasy that I really love. Those are all the authors I'm going to mention who I know for sure are queer. There's a bunch of other queer authors who are very beloved, I guess I could say. Shauna Maguire is, I think, bisexual. Sarah Gailey is bisexual. Anna Lee Newitz is queer. Their partner, Charlie Jane Andrews, is a trans woman. But I have not read from either of those authors. I started Anna Lee Newitz's book, Autonomous, but I just haven't gotten around to finishing it. So I can't wreck them because I haven't read them. That's kind of how I feel. And then, like I said, I feel like there's a bunch of other, especially bisexual women authors, but I just could not find the explicit evidence I feel like is out there. Like, I feel like I have seen them talk about. Oh well, I'll have to be a little bit more observant probably next time I do a Rex video. That would be good, right? The point is, there's a lot of really awesome and a lot more vocal, I think, queer authors out there who are very open and upfront about their identity and their writing. Really awesome. I mean, you'll notice my list is pretty much exclusively SFF, so they're writing a lot of really awesome speculative fiction that incorporates a lot of really awesome queer characters. And I think that's really cool to be living in an age when we're finally seeing so much of that in mainstream print or in self-publishing print, where that is also an option to give voices to people who have traditionally been denied voices in the big media. So let me know down below who some of your favorite queer creators are, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.